kitu unawaambia, and I think they were saying whatever I was saying, I make sense, and I think Saina makes sense to them because you are telling them. So my question is this, Prof. We now know all this. How are you willing to help us speak in one voice? Like, we have been speaking in different voices. And how are you willing to help us to come together as youths? Because you being our father, unaweza kutusaidia na experience yako, because you also have children who are at our age. Another question ya mwisho. When the youths were, tulikuwa tunaenda kupeleka mswada ya kurecall the MPs and kurecall Moreover Esther Passaris. And those youths and wanakujua, did they ask you, hey, Prof, whatever we are saying, we want to recall the MPs, is it constitutional? Did they come to ask you for wisdom? That's another question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sankale. Prof, you can continue. If you have any questions, I see a lot of people on the speaker, Abdullah, Academia, and the rest. Please put your hands up so it's easy to identify you. But Kivuta, Professor, if you can just answer that as we move on. Karibu.
Yes, like the question of recall, nafikiri kwamba, I hope that the people who took it forward did consult like lawyers so that they could get some good input into, what the law says and all that kind of stuff. And I saw even somewhere where Miguna had explained that what IBC is saying is not correct. It's not legal because we have had a referendum before. We have had things just relying on the constitution, even when there isn't a facilitative law, because the constitution is supreme. So this is a question that we can discuss it again. The people who took it, if I was consulted, if we were consulted with other lawyers, I'm sure we can give our professional advice and support, and even some of the NGOs have that capacity, like Katiba Institute, like Kenya Human Rights Commission, and so on. So it's good, especially any technical thing, to always consult. Nobody has a monopoly of, like if I want to consult something about IT, I don't know that field, but there are young people who will help me. And even in our house, some of our, sons help us with those matters. So I think it's important watu wajue kwamba hakuna mtu anajua zaidi ya kila mtu, na kuna vitu sasa hiki kizazi young kinajua hata zaidi ya wale wengine wa miaka mingi kidogo. So very ready to sit with those people who the valiant young people who did it, and then with other lawyers, with some NGOs, and then we do whatever is possible. Then like now, this idea of kusaidia, like hii kitu ya kuorganize as young people, in the first instance ni nyinyi ndio msiingiliwe na watu waharibu movement yenu, ni nyinyi, na kitu chenu tu ni kusema hapa tunataka this kind of assistance, kwa sababu ikiwa kuna mtu atawasaidia if you are not capable, then even that movement of yours will be weak. Lakini sasa nyinyi mkisema kwamba this is how we want, we want to, we are doing this, alafu sasa tumefika hapa, alafu sasa, kuna few challenges, kuna mawaidha gani mnaweza, kusaidia that way, na ni mawaidha ya kusaidia bila kufikiria kwamba ninasaidia ndio niwe supported. Because actually, if and when this movement stands on its feet kabisa, iwe sasa iwezi kutingishwa. Hata hawa watu wa siasa wote, even now, I saw somewhere the deputy president beginning to say that youths have a right to talk. You see, because it is being realized that this thing is going nowhere, and the youth are going to be critical 2027. And that's why maybe the president has been told, zungumze nao wa jamaa, hizi risasi si solution na abductions and what. So I was caught by surprise when I saw him in, Express not express but in social media, akisema kwamba, I think he tweeted kusema kwamba, now, we need to talk to young people. I hope Sankale nimejibu.
Yeah, I think you've answered him. I think the other question was, based on that, is that why was it so hard for the Gen Z who took forward the recall not to have consulted, based on the fact that they have some of the people who try to consult with them or work with them? How did they get it wrong? And is it still viable? Is there a route to get rid of or to recall those MPs? What's your thought on that?
Nafikiri even if there is an initial answer, I mean kwamba jambo limeisha, and that's why I was saying like just our being available to sit, because the fact that there isn't a specific law, like there was a time we had a referendum without a referendum law because the constitution says that you can do it. So if the constitution says that you can do something, actually the MPs were trying to change what the constitution says, to say that, for example, if you want to recall an MP, you must have, like, among other things, first of all, you can't recall them in the first 2 years and also towards the end. And then you must have 50% of the people voted for that person, or for either for that person or for the registered voters in that place. So you can see they are making it impossible. And that's why they are saying that kuna law bado haijafanywa. So I advise kwamba, if those guys, come to the civil society and even, asking us to kind of now sit with them and we look at how this is to be done, because it's a constitutional right. If somebody is not performing, then you get them out. Governors wanatolewa na hakuna sheria ingine, na wanatolewa isipokuwa katika County Government Act, lakini wanatolewa, you can actually remove them first month, like Awira, I think it was the first 3 months, akaanza kutolewa. Kwa hivyo these guys, the MPs know how to protect themselves, and if we are not consulted in terms of looking at this matter, then watakuwa protected mpaka mwisho, and that's not a positive thing if people have done things that are negative.
To wrap up on that discussion of self-development versus group development, Prof, it's true that if you want to go far, you go with people. If you want to go very, very quickly, you go by yourself. My point to Sankale was this, that even as we rally to create group movements, the individual growth must also happen. They don't have to happen one after another. Subsequently, they can happen at the same time. Prof, what do you say to that? And then tutapatia Abdullah aseme kitu ambayo alafu tuendelee. Karibu sana Prof.
Nafikiri hiyo ni sawa kabisa. Hata katika mazungumzo yangu ni kama nimegusia hivyo, kusema kwamba lazima mtu ajipange ndio atambulike mahali anataka, ikiwa ni kuitisha kura ama uongozi wowote ule, mpaka mtu ajipange, mtu ajigrow. Na the best is ikiwa watu wengi wale wa rika moja, wale ni Gen Zs pamoja, wanakuwa na kama, like sometimes there are negative cultures. Like in the 1960s, there was the EP culture. Unakuta watu wengi wanakuwa the same. Na wakati walikuwa influenced na these people that are very good music, the Beatles, so even as kila mtu Sankale anajigrow, Samuel anajigrow, all those people wanajigrow, akina Adifa, akina Shakira, akina Okayo, akina whoever, Kotsongo, as they grow themselves, if they are able through, like one of the things that I think should be done is like almost a leadership school, like even a dedicated experts for just leadership, what is the do's and don'ts? How do you prepare yourself to become MCA up to president? Na tunaita watu tofauti kila wakati wanazungumza, wanaulizwa maswali. So that, alafu hii mambo ya values na ethics na morality, hiyo, sasa hiyo inakuwa mtu wanajigrow kama group, wanakuwa na values kama the same, alafu sasa wanagrow the group. So I agree mjadala kwamba sio mpaka kitu kimoja kifanyike kwanza na kingine kifuate, zinaweza kufuatana zote mbili.
Asante sana na nashukuru sana kwamba umegusia mambo ya group academy ama group consciousness, growing the group consciousness, because I've been telling Justice, unamjua Justice ambaye alikuwa anatuhost kabla space yanguke, nilimwambia kwamba he has a calling there to actually fill that vacuum, na nimekuwa nikita kwamba ni vacuum ambayo iko ya kwamba unapata kwamba watu wanataka sana kuingia katika siasa, hawajui hata kujieleza vizuri hata kuuliza swali vizuri hawajui, alafu wanapelekwa pale katika mahojiano, unapata huyu jamaa kabisa hata kujieleza ama ndio umepatiwa nafasi na Profesa Kifuoke bwana, hauwezi kumwambia jambo lolote la maana. Kwa hivyo nashukuru sana kwamba umetaja hilo, na ni kabambe, ni sawa kabisa. Mimi na Justin tunajaribu sana tuweze kujibrand hivyo, ikuwe ni mahali ambapo watu wanaweza kuja wakajieleza, wakaulizwa, wakahojiwa mambo moja mawili, waweze kujua jinsi ambavyo wanaweza kuja. Abdullah, karibu sana, tunaongea hapa na Profesa. Nataka kidogo tugusie mambo ya citizen kidogo nini, lakini pia Prof yuko hapa, ni mmoja wetu. Ongea naye Abdullah, karibu.
Okay, thank you. Asante sana. Personally, I just took over. I have two questions for Prof. Yeah, one of the question is that on the recall, I understand that in the Constitution, article I think 261(7) of the Constitution, yeah, it says that when Parliament, or it mandates the Chief Justice to advise the President to dissolve Parliament if it fails to enact legislation as ordered by those legislation that have a time limit. So if Parliament failed to enact legislation, the Chief Justice has to advise the President to dissolve Parliament, and the President shall dissolve Parliament. So it is the Parliament that failed to enact this legislation, and the Chief Justice is not advises the President to dissolve Parliament. Are there or procedures or laws to put the Chief Justice accountable for this? And if there are you willing to take that over? So the second question is that I understand that you, as a governor, after the 2 terms, you went for Senate. And personally, I find it somehow, sometimes with question mark. One, because it is an oversight place, so you are probably going to oversight programs that you run as a governor. So was there anything different that you wanted to do as a senator that you could not do as a governor? Those are my only 2 questions, and thank you.
You can continue, please. You can respond.
Oh, okay. I always wait to be given permission. Maybe if there are a few more, can I take a few more? Because at some point I love to ask for permission. Nifanye jambo lingine. If there are a few more, I can take them together if you don't mind.
Okay. Thank you. Mjadala, go on.
Watu ambao kwenye mic, if you have a question, just ask Prof. Ama kama kuna jambo unataka kuongeza, Big Dave na kuona pale Nderito Academia, Engineer Aliola tawe nawe, ama Japunjiki wana swali.
Wacha jibu hizo kwanza, alafu tutarudi.
Ninasema kwamba ni kweli kwamba ikiwa kuna sheria ilikuwa ni ipitishwe by Parliament, kama for example kulikuwa na hii gender rule na MPs wakati ule walikuwa wamepewa hawakupasisha hiyo sheria, alafu Chief Justice Maraga akaandikia President Uhuru Kenyatta akisema kwamba sasa inatakikana, after a long time of not doing it, parliament not doing it, inatakikana parliament iwe dissolved, lakini the president didn't do that. So it is true, ikiwa kuna sheria imesemekana kwamba hii sheria mpaka ipitishwe within a particular time na ikupitishwa, then at least that one of 2/3 gender ilikuwa kwamba there is no way you can do it without a constitutional amendment. But this particular instance of recall does not need a constitutional amendment. And that is why sometimes when even a law has not been passed, but the constitution is clear, you can simply use the constitution. And that has happened, before. So this idea of there must be a law as such is not an enough reason for the recall process being stopped. And maybe this matter will end up in court if the IEBC inaendelea kukataa to do the necessary. But the thing is, if we only rely on that law, itakuwa sio rahisi wabunge kukubali wapitishe sheria ya kuwapeleka nyumbani, especially wale wote walipigia kura ile finance bill ilikataliwa, na wale walikuwa wahusika katika kustop watu, who were part of watu kupata shida katika wakati maandamano ya parliament when there was shooting and so on and so forth. So it is almost next to impossible for parliament to pass any law which is going to send them home in advance. So that is why we have to use the constitution, and there are precedents, but I think again, even although it will take long, taking an opinion to the Supreme Court, but again, also that route of kuangalia kwamba the Chief Justice can, be asked what should she do if there is a law that was supposed to be passed and has not been passed because the MPs they self-interest wanaogopa kupitisha sheria ile itawatoa. Lakini what was proposed, as I've tried to explain, is actually a law which makes sure that is very difficult kutolewa. If you have to do another election, so to speak, to get half of either registered voters or the people who voted for somebody, that becomes very difficult. Ukiwa governor, hilo ni jambo la kutekeleza, na katika kutekeleza, ikiwa ulijaribu kutekeleza vizuri, unajua ni nini kuna shida, ni shida gani zinakumba magavana ama county executive katika kazi yao. Na kwa hivyo ukiwa katika role ya oversight, unaweza kusaidia the whole country, now not just the county that you are working, like the things that Omtata is doing in terms of kila wakati kusema kwamba hili jambo si sawa. Alikuwa anasaidiana na Onyonka in that kind of thing. Hapo mwanzo akina Orengo, akina Nyang'nyong, akina Kiraitu, akina Eji, Mutula Kilonzo senior katika oversight, kwa sababu kuna vitu vile mtu anaweza kujua, this is what happens, this is where people take money badly and all that kind of stuff. So I don't personally see a contradiction. Of course there are issues about the negative ethnicity in our country and that kind of stuff, but I see myself value si ati mtu anataka tu holding positions or power. I hope one day we will begin to get presidents from governors, because if they have, and even senators, because that is what happens in America. You can be a governor in a state, you can be from Senate like Obama, or governor like Clinton, and umeanza kujua kufanya kazi mahali like Mali ikiwa ni governor a lower level, but being a governor of a county like these counties which have even like Nairobi about 5 million, if you're a governor of Nairobi and you do it well, you can easily be a president. So I hope one day that we will get governors who have performed well to even be presidents of the country and enhance the evolution, bring the experience to bear in terms of with others running our country.
Thank you so much, Professor. I have a question for you before I give it back to Mjadala. My question is this. You have urged Gen Z to partner with figures like Okiya Omtata, David Maraga, and Boniface Mwangi for Kenya's third economic liberation. So what specific qualities make these individuals to be suitable to lead transformative change? And how can Kenya cultivate this new generation of leaders with integrity to replace the current political class? Thank you.
Wacha tumuongezee kwa sababu alisema kwamba nataka kadhaa. Niongeze Profesa? Nikuulize nyingine ama utajibu hiyo kwanza?
Sawa, naweza kuuliza nyingine.
Yeah. A topic pale tuliweka kwamba corruption experience in politics. Na two of the biggest exposés if you want to, nasema quote unquote kwa sababu sio exposés pase, zingine tuko najua, ni ile expressway na sasa hii tumeambiwa juzi ya e-Citizen 11 billion. And now just talk to them in regards to, because those are, public funds. So could you talk to them in terms of corruption and the experience in politics? Asante. Nderito, wewe uko na nyingine?
Yes, mine is also
uliza ya mwisho alafu ajibu.
Mine is in questions which yani mimi nauliza tu, because if a president, maybe former ama hata huyu wa sahi, assigns a law which is not benefiting the people, can't we do something about it? Especially when it comes to the economy, knowing that pesa zenye zinachukuliwa being collected by the government does not go to CBK, or even the money that comes from outside the country does not go to CBK, inaenda kwa specific people or their personal account, which makes it even harder for Kenyans to ask for accountability, because we do not even know which account, who's the holder of the account. It's just madogodanyo, like we say in Kikuyu, madogodanyo in economy. It is not normal. So how can we, is it supposed to come from the people, or is there supposed to be the young leaders to go and ask for this demand, or what are we supposed to do for it to be stricken down? Because it's ascended already, but it was not with the great or with the good intention from the beginning. Thank you.
Asante. George, uliza ya mwisho swali moja alafu azijibu zote. George, uko kwa mic? Prof, huyo George ako mbali, endelea.
Sawa.
Endelea, Prof.
Yes,
I think George ako na
please,
shida.
George. Okay. Professor, you can go on, please.
Swali ya if a law is unconstitutional, a law does not benefit the people, can the people say no to it? And of course, yes. But the way of saying no, like the way in which Finance Act, ile watu walisema hii hatutaki, na kwanza wakasema kwamba hata hii si maana ya kuna ingine Omtata alipeleka kotini, alafu ikasemekana sio sawa, sio constitutional kuwa na public participation, alafu baadaye Supreme Court ikabadilisha hiyo, na ile ingine president akaitoa kwanza kwa sababu watu wamekataa. So that was direct citizen action. kusema kwamba hii sheria haituitaki na tuitaki na tuitaki, because the citizens article 1 they delegate actually their powers. Hakuna kitu, whether ni president, whether ni legislature, whether ni judiciary, whether ni counties, kila kitu wanafanya kwa niaba ya wananchi wa raia. And that's one thing that hata watu kwa ujumla, hiyo ni jambo hawajaishika kabisa, wakajua things are done because they have authorized. So kuna jinsi Gen Zs walifanya, wakakataa finance bill, lakini pia watu wengi wanapeleka mambo kotini, mpaka koti inasema this is unconstitutional. Hata magavana walikuwa wanapeleka a lot of things, especially kipindi cha kwanza kotini, wakasema the national government is trying to use up our powers, na hiyo ikawa inakubalika na koti inasema kwamba sheria zingine mnatengeneza zinakiuka. Like now even the Eurobond thing, we know there was a first Eurobond thing where pesa zilichukuliwa na hazikuwekwa katika the government, haikuja treasury, haikuja central bank or whatever. So that's an issue. Hata the Auditor General Edward Ouko aliposema hiyo jambo alipata shida, mpaka hata wakaanza kusema watampeleka kotini. Same as hii kitu ya mezungumzia ya e-citizen, hiyo pia sasa ni jambo limetokea, now it was being discussed before, but now there is even more evidence, kwa sababu sasa hivi ndio sheria imekuwa very clear hii ya conflict of interest. Hata parliament walikuwa wanataka to ensure that people can still, when you're in government, your relatives, yourself, you can still procure from the government, lakini hiyo ikakataliwa, so that the president decided to veto that kind of provision, so that now there's a more robust conflict of interest. And even there before, and one hopes that all these things will be looked at, so that when you have done things that are clearly demonstrative of conflict of interest, hiyo watu wanasema kwamba mpaka iangaliwe, mpaka ikiwa ni pesa za kurudishwa zirudishwe. And that is, for example, what Omtata says, what Kigame says, what Boniface says. So to combine that question and the question of, yes, I said to myself, there are people who have, for example, been with the Gen Zs on the streets. There are people who have a history of, transformational acts and transformational ideals, and they have suffered for it. Whether it is Omtata, whether it is Boniface, I thought these are the people that we kind of call people of a progressive bent. But I also said that apart from those I mentioned, I said in that tweet that if the other progressive and nationalist, na hawa ndio nimesema hapo awali, it is not like just simply saying I want. Ultimately, if the Gen Zs are going to support any group, wao wenyewe ndio watachambua, waseme okay, even if Kibwana says there are some people who are progressive, sisi kama Thoma katika Bible tunataka kujua wenyewe, tunataka we want to be very sure, because if there is any leadership that again we are not sure about, tutarudi pale pale. But even that list was open-ended to the extent that it is really the youth who must say hawa ndio wanatosha mboga, kwa sababu ikiwa hawa watu wamemwagwa damu, hawasemi kwamba sisi, including their leaders, because who says a Gen Z cannot be a president? Who says even Faith Ojambo cannot be? Amepita Gen Z kidogo. Who says she can't be a president? So it is at the end, ni nyinyi lazima mfanye hivyo, so that this movement is not in vain. And these are suggestions of those people coming together. There are other people that I respect a lot, people like Martha, people like Mukisa, I don't know, and others that Gen Zs will identify themselves. I heard Omtata in one of the explainer akisema kwamba aliulizwa kama anaweza kufanya kazi na Gachagua, akasema kwamba if katika policies kuna vitu alisema policies kama zake na nini and that is an interesting contribution, and I am not, I have not discussed with him to know exactly what he means, but at least there are people that I identified, and I thought they have a history. Even Gen Zs, I've tried to identify them, they have been with them now, but even those ones cannot go far without the Gen Zs being behind them. And even if the Gen Zs decided that they don't want the united, even that this united opposition, in my view, again, that united opposition, it will be mincemeat, I think. And that's a strong term. But without the support of these young people, I kind of think that it will be easy for the votes kuibiwa. But maybe I am pessimistic, but that's my gut reaction.
Shukrani sana kwa wale ambao mko hapa. Tuko katika space hapa, tunapiga story ama tunapiga gumzo na Profesa Kibwana ambaye sio mgeni sana kwa watu wengi ambao ni 20 kitu kwenda juu. Asanteni sana. Na nasema umemtaja pale Mheshimiwa Martha, lakini mimi kidogo pale na shuku kidogo pale kwamba vijana wengi hawatampenda, kwa sababu nilimuuliza swali juzi tu, tulikuwa katika redio ama kipindi fulani iko hosted pale Maryland, USA. Alikuwa katika tour yake ya Marekani juzi, sio zamani sana, mbele kabla aje na Unyoro. Nikamuuliza, sasa wewe kama mtu ambaye umewania tayari kiti kikubwa cha urais Kenya, nipe policy, kwa sababu nyinyi wapinzani mnashinda mkisema sana tunafinywa, ekonomi yetu ni mbaya. Nikamuuliza, basi sawa mheshimiwa, sasa tuambie sisi wasikilizaji wa hiki kipindi, wewe una polisi gani ya uchumi ya kutuinua kiuchumi? Alishindwa because she had scripted something. She was talking about these superficial things, and I was really disappointed, honestly, Professor. I just had to say that as an anecdote from the experience I had with Mheshimiwa Karua. Anyway, naona George ameinua mkono. Asante sana, tunaendelea hapa kupiga gumzo. George ameinua mkono. George, wakati ni wako kuuliza swali, na Sankale pia.
Asante sana mjadala. I'll speak in English. Swahili inanipigaga chenga. I want to say thank you so much to Professor Kibwana for taking his time to share some thoughts with us and discuss with us, hear us. Also want to commend him for the wonderful and amazing work that he's done in Makueni County during his tenure. A lot of people don't talk about that, but he did a very good job then. My question to you, Prof, is just one question. As citizens, we cannot understand why the opposition or the people that want a better country for us, like you, like Matiang'i, like Maraga, and all those other people in the opposition, we cannot understand why people cannot come together and just work together, form a team, and present this team to the citizens. I've heard you say that the Gen Zs come on board and cooperate. This is will win without landslide. So what I can see from the Gen Z is that they're looking for direction. Everyone seems to say they're disorganized or whatever. That's their own way of doing things, but they're looking for direction. As Professor, these people are your friends, they are your neighbors, you can call them. Why can't you guys sit down, put together a perfect team and present it to the country for us to support? That was my question. Thank you very much.
Asante George. Tuongeza na Mulinge. Nani mwingine alikuwa ameinua? Mulinge hata wajibu atuliza swali hapo ongezea.
My question to Prof would be very, is about the economy. Of course, he has talked about a lot of things, and since he is talking, he has mentioned some names which maybe he thinks should be in the forefront when we talk about 2027. So I would ask, Prof, what is your take on the issue of odious debt? Because to me, I haven't had so many people, these politicians who want to run for 2027, I haven't heard anything from them about this issue. Do you think that we have someone right now in that group who can say won't pay, can't pay? And what would be the repercussions, if any? Because look, we have been paying taxes to pay debt and not to develop our country. And so the economy is collapsing because of this issue of people who, of course, you've spoken about these loans. People took these loans, stole the money, and now we are the ones as Kenyans who are now supposed to pay. So I was thinking, why would we be paying for something that we never spent? We didn't spend. So should we say can't pay, won't pay? And if yes, do we have a candidate in the opposition right now who has the courage to say that? Number two. Number two, as I learned, would be on the education sector. Right now, we know Prof is in I think DASA, yeah. So let me talk about the CBC in the education sector. To me, I feel like this curriculum is a classist, discriminatory, so expensive for the common man. What would be your suggestion to solve this problem of the CBC? Do we have someone in the opposition right now, or the names you have mentioned? Do we have anyone who can tell us, guys, let's rethink CBC? Because according to me, if I was to be asked, I would say abolish this thing as early as today. Sit down as Kenyans, come up with a curriculum which will favor everyone in this.
Mulinga, kumbuka tunajifundisha hata sisi hapa kuwa good orators. Sasa ukishauliza wachana na idea yako, wewe acha kwanza prof kupatia idea yake, tutaongea baadaye. Asante. Umesema sasa mambo ya CBC kuwe rectified. Tumpe Sankale na engineer, alafu tumalizie hivyo professor ajibu.
So Prof, umesema kuwa ati kuna good political parties zenye young people wanaweza join. I remember 2022 I vied for MCA. I was 25 years. Na nilijoin some of the parties na ilikuwa so hard for me to get nomination because walikuwa wanajua nani wanaenda kupea nomination. So how do we trust those parties? Question number 2, just agreeing with what you said, that if the Gen Z tutakuwa pande ya tutakuwa na like tutakuwa tumejipanga, the president might rig the election, lakini akijua ile side yenye tuko ataogopa juu anajua tukitokea maandamano atakuwa kwa problem. So how there was agreeing. Now my question is this: Martha Karua wakati alikuwa kwa Kenya Kwanza au Azimio la Umoja, kulikuwa na extrajudicial killing River Yala na alinyamaza. Bei ya unga ilipanda na alikuwa running mate wa Raila Odinga. Tukaambiwa tuache kubweka kama maumbo na Raila Odinga na alinyamaza. Kulikuwa na a lot of constitutional crisis, NMS ikipewa wanajeshi, Kenya Meat Commission ikipewa wanajeshi. So how do we trust such a person? Yetu akiwa ndani ya serikali haongei, lakini wakati tumbo yake ako nje ya serikali anaongea. So how can we trust such a person? Prof, thank you.
Before Prof comes in, Sankale, I don't think Kivuta professor holds brief for Martha Karua, and it will be better if we invite her here at some point so we don't contradict or create a lot of hypotheses.
Yeah, in fact,
host,
ni sawa tunaweza kuistrike kwa sababu in fact host Prof amesema Gen Z ndo wata investigate hawa watu. Yeye amesema tu majina lakini bado ni Gen Z watakuwa last call. So thank you for clarifying that. So I think that's when we can kind of rest easy on that. Engineer ulizo swali ya mwisho alafu prof ajibu because alafu tuone towards statement time yake.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Host. I think that mine is not a question, just, a compliment. So can I proceed?
Oh,
Please
with all
go
due
on.
course, yeah.
Thank you very much. I just want to talk about matters African leadership. Most of the time, from the last time I checked, it came to my realization that, the people whom we call our leaders, or, the African leaders, it came to my realization that these people, they are not leaders, but they are rulers. Most African people doesn't understand the meaning of leadership. And that is why you see what's taking place in Africa as a whole is ongoing. For example, here, let me take a nation, our land, this nation, Kenya. When we try to to put matters on the bench,
We. Engineer amezimata mic. Prof, kuna maswali mingi hapo nimeandika kama 5. Sijui kama ulikuwa unaziandika lakini please respond to those. Alafu player pia tuambie kuna how much more time.
Asante. Nasema hii jambo ya odious debt, Omtata ameizungumzia sana, Jimmy Wanjigi, Kigame, nafikiri Boniface Mwangi, na kisheria hata Mozambique ilienda kotini mpaka debts zingine zikawa kwamba hawezi kulipa. Kwa sababu gani? Kwa sababu hata ukipeana debt, let us say watu wa nje, unajua sheria ya nchi. For example, if you give any debts to Kenya, approval by parliament, then there's also to be, it must be for development, not for recurrent expenditure. Alafu wewe katika yale makaratasi mnaandikana na serikali ya Kenya, unapeana loan ya recurrent. Kwa hivyo unapeana loan kukeuka sheria ya Kenya, and your lawyers, because they are sharp lawyers for those organizations, should be able to tell you that that is a loan against the laws of that particular country. Kwa hivyo, it is when you get, a leadership which looks at each loan and then says that hii loan ilikuwa ni ya kufanya nini? Hii loan ni ya kufanya nini? Alafu ikiwa ni si ya kufanya development, ikiwa ya kufuata sheria za nchi, then wewe you have lent to the person that you have given that money. You have not lent to the country. Alafu katika kukubaliana katika any loan, pia unaandika vizuri, this loan is for this purpose. So if you give a loan for, after the purpose, you also you say that this loan will be deposited in this whatever, this place. Na hiyo inalingana na katika sheria hiyo nchi, loan zinawekwa wapi. Kwa hivyo ukiambiwa weka hii loan Cayman Islands ama those places for offshore accounts, unajua kwamba unafanya jambo si sawa. Kwa hivyo that can be challenged also in the international courts. Kwa hivyo it is only that the countries don't like to follow them and they keep on, of course, paying and that kind of stuff. So hiyo ni jambo linaweza kuwa prosecuted according to international law, because if somebody has lent for a purpose that is not in the law, if a purpose if they have put that money somewhere else, then hiyo ni shida yao. And Mozambique was able, recently to demonstrate that. But there are people who have actually challenged, those particular things. Of course, we are told that if you don't pay, the international community is not going to give you loans and stuff like that. You'll be a failure country and so on. But if you demonstrate that these were things that were not done legally, then the people who lend, they will go after whoever it is that they gave the money to. And that's their issue. And actually the best situation is we run our country without corruption in such a way that we don't need those loans. We can stand, like Burkina Faso is already saying that if the information we get, and it has to be verified, that, they are debt free. And even during Kibaki, he tried to some extent to really minimize, debt. So we should actually aim at running our country without corruption, with good economy, so that we don't have to, borrow unnecessarily and even misuse the money that we borrow. Now it is no longer CBC, it is CBE, and I agree that parents from poor backgrounds find it very difficult to sustain this. And in those schools, there isn't much that is done if this is supposed to be experiential education. And actually, the entire educational system, despite the fact that kuna kitu kiliitwa Munavu, report, a presidential report, education, even up to now, assuming that there were good suggestions there, up to now, the committee that was supposed to implement it, haijaundwa. And even some of the things that were recommended, kama hii kitu ya elimu ya university fees, ilibadilishwa tena. So in the education sector, we have to redo it afresh. Walimu kila wakati hawana pesa, hakuna capitation. University ni hizo shida ziko. Some of the universities are collapsing. Moi, Nairobi shida, Kenyatta shida. Most of the public universities are collapsing. So this is something that we have to do afresh. And even in ancient Africa, like Egypt, they actually had an educational system which brought like their public servants and generally the population, elimu yao, which emphasized like this aspect of ethical, moral, spiritual values, mpaka wakadominate a lot of the world for 4,000 years, the longest living state up to now. So hii elimu ni kitu cha kukalia upya, from hiyo shule ya chini ya vidudu, ECD mpaka university and so on. Imagine whether it's lecturers, whether it is teachers, they are paid peanuts until people don't respect their profession. And if they don't respect their profession and they are growing the people who will eventually take over, what is the quality of those people? So here a broad subject. I hope there'll be a space just to discuss education alone. And yes, I am now into teaching. Actually, to say, when I taught at the University of Nairobi for 25 years and left as an associate professor, those days, well, one can say about 80,000 shillings was a lot, but that was my end salary. And you can see, if I was in politics, if I was in the private sector, if I was a lawyer in town, that's peanuts. And that's how we treat, these professors. And that's why sometimes they're teaching in many universities. That is why, they are moonlighting and all that kind of stuff. So places, teachers are some of the most revered, professions. And you just don't, nobody just teaches. You must be very qualified to do so. Sankale asked about which parties. Yes, I think even now, maybe there are some parties which young people are forming, and that's right. But also those parties, how do you develop them? How do you make sure that there is a democratic constitution? How do you make sure that you have real members? How do you make sure that you know, even that party has a manifesto, philosophy, vision? How do you make sure that the elections of the officials are democratic and they are real elections? When there is nomination, how do you make sure that the nominations are also democratic? You know, all that, because now hizi parties tuko nazo, majority of them ni kitu ya watu, sio parties are, you know, according to the constitution. Now the constitution says parties should be formed. So hiyo ni kazi kubwa, lakini I'm thinking it is also important to look at all the existing parties, because there may be some which are of a progressive nature and which will do their work in proper ways, so that they don't do what Sankale has said and is true. You can be invited into those parties and eventually you ask for money ndio uwe upate nomination. Ikiwa una pesa unaambiwa kwenda. And that is why, you know, if and when this Gen Z movement gels and they're able to say hii party sisi, hata sasa tutaanza kusema watu wale, hata hizi parties zingine, even if we are not there, we will be saying if so and so is nominated in that party because we have tumewachunguza, then we shall support that person. So that therefore the parties know they just don't do monkey business and they get away with it. Jinsi imesemekana, of course Martha, you know, participated a lot in the constitution making and so on, but I emphasize, it is in my view, if the young people, you know, now are together, and if, you know, they say anybody who wants any position, sisi develop a criteria ya what leadership is, na kila mtu sisi akitaka support yetu, sisi kwanza tutamwangalia, tukiona anafaa ametosha mboga, tutasema ndio, wewe tutakusupport. You know, it is like that rigorous, you know, movement, kusema kwamba now, and we are going to be in these positions, so that we say, huyu Gen Z anatosha, you know, akina Tom Mboya walikuwa, you know, in serikali, wakiwa under, I think 30 or just about 30, you know, akina, you know, a lot of people, even abroad, mtu anakuwa prime minister akiwa under 35. So it is not, you know, when you are prepared the way we started in terms of who are you, your philosophy, your jinsi una maadili and all that kind of stuff, unaweza you know, kuwa anything in our country. So even if I suggest names or anybody suggests names, ultimately ni nyinyi ndio mtasema, just like I'm repeating, huyu anatosha mboga and atoshi, because we have developed a criteria and we are going to stick with it. Tumefundisha watu wetu, sasa si kupewa pesa, si handout, si kuambiwa, you know, because there's some tribal thing, you know, vote for our tribe, whatever. It depends on the kind of, ikiwa you sustained this thing of hata watu wanakuja wanataka kuwaoa na nini na nini, hii kitu ingine ya kuzungumza na watu wenu from every ward, because there are Gen Zs in every ward, there are Gen Ys in every ward, there are people of goodwill. That is the kind of thing, you know, that will be necessary. And I agree that a lot of our leaders in Africa, kuna a lot of self-serving, and it's not just at the national level. It is when people are local government, the councillors, Kanju, in the, you know, counties, and even a lot of leadership, you'll find that in a cooperative, people are wrecking the cooperative in, you know, even in faith organizations and so on, because kuna huu mdudu wa ubinafsi, mdudu wa ufisadi, mdudu wa, you know, umeenea mahali kwingi. And so people like Nyerere are exceptions. People like Sankara are exceptions. Even this new Burkina Faso guy, and one can mention other people in Africa who have really tried, you know, like how, and they don't even sometimes have to be in politics. You can be a leader to influence politics without being in direct politics. Kama Mahatma Gandhi, kama Martin Luther King, you know, and those people. And in our country, people like Wangari Maathai, who was in politics, not so much so, but she was very influential because of the ideas ile anapanda, sio kupanda miti peke yake. Ideas ile anapanda ndio tuwe na kizazi kinaweza kuwa tofauti na kinaweza kuokoa nchi yetu. Asante.
Thank you so much, Prof. We have a lot of people here. We acknowledge Keoti Sonko, karibu sana. and the rest. If your hand is up, please, in 1 minute, give your questions to Kivuta Kibwana on the second round, and then you will respond as we move forward. Let's start with Engineer Robert, because your hand is up. Academia, if you are there, please ask your question, and then Kioti Sonko in that order. Please, Karibu. Engineer, you can unmute if you can hear us.
Host,
Yeah.
sijui umeweka line namna gani, but wacha kwanza engineer malize, but nilikuwa nimeandika line hapa. Kulikuwa na Nderito, Kim, alafu kulikuwa na Mulinge. Hiyo ndio ilikuwa order. So engineer maliza, kwa sababu unasema kitu about leadership. Malizia hapo na umesikia jinsi hapo prof amesema, and then tutaendelea na live.
Thank you very much. Are you hearing me now?
Yeah, tunakusikia sawa kabisa. Malizia, uko na kama dakika 2 ulikuwa umeanza mbeleni.
Oh, thank you. I was just having a technical, some technicalities on my phone. I was talking about matters African leadership, and I just wanted to give some clarity on that, because most of us we don't know what leadership is, and you find most of the time those whom we elect to lead us they know not about what an elephant in the room called leadership. So leadership, this is an opportunity granted or given to an individual with the needful credentials to dispense the needful mandate unto the people or unto the citizens of a nation. It is not a complacency podium for selfish desires that we see happening in Africa. When I talk about Africa, I'm talking about the African nations, or Kenya being one of them. And that is why you find we see, for example, the matters corruption. You see the top leaders in the government. These are the people leading us on matters corruption. And when we visit the governmental institutions, you are being told by the writings that this is a free zone. Corruption. This is there's a term that they normally use.
Corruption-free zone.
Corruption-free zone. So, but these are the people who are spearheading on matters corruption. So, in a nutshell, when we want to do away with such kind of people whom we elect to lead us, yet they are not doing what what they are supposed to do, is that as Africans, we should unite. How can Africans unite? Africans unite by freeing their minds. How can we free our minds? We can free our minds by what we call decolonization. This is whereby we decolonize our minds and we ask ourselves, now, what is the solution to the problem? Like now, the problem we have in Kenya. When we look the SHA matters, SHA education system not working out as we are. In fact, the education system in Kenya, it is not adding up.
Oh, wait, Bob.
So
1 more minute, please, Land.
So let me finish. What we can do, let all youths register, get ID, come 2027, let us vote out leaders who cannot work for Kenyans and deliver. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I do appreciate you for your comments, and you're right that leaders, we need good leaders. In fact, I've been opining on this issue, Awiti, that we have politicians, not leaders in Kenya, and this is the problem that we have. And I like that Dr. Kibwana and a lot of other people here thinking about making it a place where we focus on creating good leadership. Haya, Derito, Kim, Academia, KOT ameishia. Koromo atachukua space ya KOT. Na ukiingia hapa juu kama kuna swali unainua mkono, Mulinga amerudi. Mulinga wewe bana, utaacha kunipanga hivi. Unaenda ukirudi. Utakuja baada ya Kim.
I thought you were the one mwenye ulinitoa.
Kuna mtu amekutoa bana. Wewe tununua zuku. Karibu nani, Derito.
Yes, Professor, my problem is with the women, and it's not only the women in Kenya, but the women in Africa in totality. They do not have their place in the society. Okay, they are mothers, they have works and all that. But when it comes to politics, there is no role for them. So how can we define this role correctly? Not the women representative, because that one is not the role that actually I feel that the women should be playing. It's just lacking some consistency and maturity and heaviness. Women are 51% in Kenya, yet the role they are being given, it just looks absurd, stupid.
Let me ask
like
you,
a
Derito.
trophy.
Let me ask you real quick. I know you're asking the question, but let me ask you as a woman. Are you waiting for someone to give you a leadership role?
No, that is not the thing. The way the politics of Kenya has been played for quite a long time. We used to have Riorogo Manduli as the people to look up to. And now the ones that we have right now are just absurd. Yeah, yani if I am a 18-year-old or a 17 and I want to be political in the next 5 years to come, I do not know how to follow because it just looks bizarre. So that is my question. How can we define that role? And who are the participants, or do we need like a consensus to sit down with women so that we call this role specifically, because it's lacking not only in Kenya but also around Africa. That is why.
Did you know, Derito, that right now as we speak, we have the most number of women presidents in Africa right now as we speak? Did you know that?
That is not the question. You're not getting the question. It is not.
That's a professor kujibu.
No. That is not the question. You know, okay, there is this women politicians. Okay, fine. But the role of the woman, because ni kama tumerudishwa chini kabisa. Ni kama na si a question of patriarchy or matriarchy. It's just that it's lacking something of consistency. That is why I'm asking this question.
All right, thank you very much. Nitacha nani pia uliza swali anaitwaje Derito mweliza Kim Mulinge Academia Simon. Ulizeni in that order, haraka alafu tuone namna gani. Kim alianda. Haya. Hiyo chance tupatie nani? Kim yuko hapa kweli? Kim alianda. Haya, tupatie Mulinge. Mulinge uliza swali lako.
Yeah, so I have 3 questions. Na moja nitarudi hapo nyuma because wewe mjadala first time ulinikatiza before nimalizie swali yangu. So
uliza basi.
Yeah, next time you should be a moderator, not kujaribu kunikatiza.
Kunipia kelele na hauta kupigia kelele. No, you just ask your questions lakini usianze kuniletea volume. Speak.
Tulia niendelee. So, on the issue of odious debt, my question was really like, is there a way we can bypass all these bureaucratic processes of let's go to international courts, let's sue these people, like where we can set a court here in Kenya and say, okay, you guys, you are involved in borrowing this cash, come here in court, answer to these charges, haraka, then we recover the money they have stolen, their properties, ndio tulipe nazo debt. That was my question. Number two is on still on the constitution. Prof, do you think the constitution of Kenya 2010 has been very lenient to criminals? And this is why I'm asking. You see, right now, today, even if we arrest these people and charge them with crimes against humanity, like they have been killing Kenyans, we charge them with corruption, and then the next day, they are released. on cash bail and whatever, and then they end up buying the witnesses or even killing them or even threatening them, and the cases ends up collapsing. Do you think there's a way we can work within the constitution and make sure, make sure the constitution is harsh on these people? Like we get a way of punishing these people kwa haraka haraka without easy cases kuenda through all these processes where they end up being set free. Number three, my last question is on what do we call this thing? The two thirds gender rule. What are the people who wrote this constitution thinking about this thing? Is it really realistic? Ama walikuwa wanaeka vitu hapo just because there was some external pressure and so on? Will this thing ever be achieved or rather actualized, or should we just do away with it and say, okay, guys, let's come up with an alternative of solving this issue on gender? Because these two thing looks very, very unrealistic. So hizo ndio maswali zangu, mjadala.
Asante sana. Okay. Tuko na academia ameenda Simon basi, alafu Karomo, alafu tumpatie prof.
Okay, my fellow colleagues, mimi nimefurahia kwa join na nimesikia from everyone, don't connect late. Mimi nimeona hapa hivi kuna professor. So mimi swali yangu tu kwa professor, nitaka nijue how powerful are these people in government? Enye unapata ni kama law. The law doesn't work on them, you know? Like tukiangalia the recent situation hapa hivi, the current situation yenye imekuwa kwa country, napata kumekuanga na maandamano, the people are protesting peacefully, you know. Then you will see some government officials coming up speaking arrogantly. They don't care, you know. Wanapeana hizi orders zenye azichungi mwananchi wa kawaida, you know. Ukiangalia vizuri ni vitu zinamfinya zaidi. But ukipata kama kuna mwananchi tu, normal mwananchi ukipata remarks kama hizo anatoa, ama hata kujaribu kuongea kitu kuhusu serikali, anakuwa picked very easily, anapatikana tu rahisi. Lakini zenye watu wa serikali wenyewe wanaongea kwa mwananchi yenye inaonekana obvious, this thing does not supposed to be issued out, ama hii order ifai kupeanwa, unapata inanyamazua tu hivyo, like hakuna mtu anafuatilia tena. If ukipata labda maactivists pia wanajaribu kuongelea story kama hiyo, you see wanatafutwa, wanapotea tu hivyo tu. Sasa mimi nilitaka kujua kutoka kwa professor, how powerful are these people? The law doesn't apply to them, ama ndo wako above the law, tujue tu sasa ya sisi. Hapo ndo mimi professor anatusaidia.
Asante. Simon analalamika kwamba kwa nini kuna wanyama wengine huwa more equal than others. Asante sana. Karomu, uliza ya mwisho alafu tumpatie prof jibu kidogo.
Thanks a lot. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well, Karomu. Karibu.
So I have two questions, which are actually three questions to Professor here. The first question is about political maturity, because most of the time we have been talking about tribalism and the way it has retrogressive effects in the development of the country, our democracy and such. But sometimes you might be looking for a problem on a source that the problem does not source from exactly where you're looking. There is something to do with political maturity of the different regions and different tribes of Kenya. Allow me to use the word tribes, because on the foundation we are formed on tribes na mambo kama hiyo. Everybody has a tribe. The political maturity of the different peoples of Kenya is different. Some regions are more mature than others. Yet, democracy, through our constitution, assumes that everybody in Kenya is equal in terms of political maturity. That's when you will find one region is electing people who can really help the nation, and the other region in the same election are electing fools. So when they go to the parliament, you find that there is one side of fools and the few who can really do something for Kenya do not have any power whatsoever. How do we equalize political maturity in Kenya? How do we make sure that a person in Malaba examines a leader, the qualities of a leader, the same way a person in Ukambani will do? Because we have seen people who are totally unqualified getting into the August House together with people who
Karomo,
are very different from them. Yes?
Karomo, I'll use your example as a question. And Mulinga is mad at me, but I have to do this. Kwa sababu tukuna watu wengi na watu time out tuna value wakina prof. Uliza tu swali, umeshauliza swali, the swali part is very, very key. Na tumeshaisikia. Hizi zingine zenye unaongeza sahi hizo ni failures. Just go to your 2 other questions tuendelee.
Thank you. The second question is, how do we reinforce the youth effect in Kenya without really needing parties, really needing leaders, going leaderless and partyless, which is a new tactic that probably Prof can try to expound. Do you think the elite and the old guard are scared of the youth because the youth are using a new tactic that they are not acquainted with? They are used to forming parties, forming alliances and such, but youths have come with such a foolproof plan where there are no leaders, there are no parties, yet they have a lot of influence. Do you think they are scared? If they are scared, we need to move forward. Thank you.
Asante Karomo. Ngoja tumuingize hapa Prof kwanza. Prof, mambo, umesikia maswali, najua unaandika maswali ama the theme ama the thematic issues. Karibu sana.
Again, asante. Hili jambo la kufanya mambo unlawful, perpetuating impunity, katiba, sheria zinakataa. Lakini kuna wale viongozi wanafikiria kwamba wao wanaweza kufanya hivyo bila kitu chochote, kwa sababu raia ni docile. Na kama rural areas, you know, mtu anafanya mambo mabaya, hata CDF zinaibiwa, hata nini. So I think that question is connected with the question of Karomo in terms of political maturity. Consistently, one thing that serikali hazija kubali serially ni political education, civic education. Hata katika county government imesema kwamba lazima kuwe na civic education. Watu wajue katiba, watu wajue sheria, watu wajue kwamba ni wao article 1 wana nguvu, watu wajue, you know. Actually, when I served as a governor, one thing that I thought was necessary because of also a bit of my history in constitution making and knowing what the constitution said, we even formed a people's government. So that there was the national government, county government, and a people's government from hapo chini kwa village, about almost 3,500 villages. Watu wanachaguana. Alafu vitu wanafanya ikiwa ni ku public participation ya budget, ya law, ya plan, ya nini policy, hata projects wanasimamia mpaka uwezi kulipwa ikiwa hawaridhiki na project. And of course, you know, I thought that made things easy. Kwa hivyo, hili jambo la civic education, hata voter education, kutoka kwa IBC, civic education kutoka kwa AG, na kutoka kwa the government, the county governments, na government zile devolution, zile zina devolution docket. Hiyo ni kitu consistently haijafanywa. Actually, the time when government came out to do a lot of civic education was during after the first failure of the constitution in 2005 for the 10-1. Hapo ndio serikali ilitoka, watu wakatumwa waseme hii katiba iko namna gani and so on. sasa ndio ikapata kupita. So but after that hakukuwa na education ya hii katiba sasa ni nini inasema. Na nakumbuka kuna wakati some politicians walikuwa wanasema kwamba tumewasomea katiba, kwa hivyo basi nyinyi pigeni kura, hakuna shida. But you see, this is what, for example, the young people can do. They have the capacity to simplify katiba, tuifanye katika lugha za hata lugha za nyumbani, jinsi you did for the Finance Act, Kiswahili, ziweko kwa hizi radio za huko nyumbani, watu wazungumze huko, watu wafanye TikTok, wafanye juu chini, to get this political thing inaendelea, so that it's true that political maturity, because if political parties hiyo ya nyumbani unaambiwa kwamba huyu mchague kwa sababu amepeana pesa. Kwa hivyo huyu mtu si mpaka awe anajua anything ama ana interest ya kuhudumia watu kabisa. And that is why there was that thing of hata saa ingine fools wanachaguliwa, hata mtu ajui huku parliament kunafanywa nini, anakaa huko bila kuzungumza. And the truth be told, you see, it's not just the president that we should focus on choosing, because if you don't have a parliament that you have a majority who can do the people's agenda, who can prosecute, even if you choose a president that you believe is good, but parliament is controlled by these other parties, huyu president hata kutolewa ni rais kuwa impeached ama kufanyiwa sio rais kufanya kazi. So that is also something else, as we might focus too much on the president, tusahau kwamba without that parliament, without control of the counties by the progressive, by the transformational leaders wale mnaona wanaweza, pia kutakuwa na shida. So I like that point of this political education, very concentrated, mpaka inabadilisha watu wote wanaanza kujua like civic political education on what is leadership, what are the credentials, jinsi engineer alikuwa akisema credentials, mandate, hiyo transformational leadership, hiyo mambo yote. Now I liked what engineer said about freeing our minds, this kind of decolonization, kwa sababu wanasiasa wengi wana double speak, wana alternative truth and stuff like that. Na kwa hivyo hata ikiwa katika katiba yetu ina values, uchukue article 10, uchukue almost kile chapter kinasema what are the values, 232 and all that, we don't have a philosophy. We used to have something called Arambe. Saa ingine kuna countries kama South Africa wanasema kuna Ubuntu, Tanzania kuna ujamaa, Gaddafi alikuwa na green book yake, green revolution, kuna black consciousness, kuna humanism ya Kaunda, African socialism tulikuwa tunasema. You see, if you don't have a vision, if you don't have something like how Nyerere planted, sisi ni ndugu, mind the other one, and stuff like that. Of course the economy thing ikaanza kuwa sio focused on mwanzo, but he made a good foundation for that country, so that it even today the name of Nyerere, like now they did that kitu ya stima nyingi mpaka sasa hata stima wanatushinda, ikaitwa Nyerere, so that watu wanafikiria huyo, wanasema kwamba there was that vision, there was that ideology, there was that philosophy ile tuluunganisha, na hata mtu akiwa anatoka mashinani Tanzania anajua ni ndugu. Ukimuuliza kabila yako ni nani, anakuambia wewe umetoka wapi. Huko hatuzungumza habari ya kabila. We are 120 tribes or ethnic groups, but that's irrelevant. I hope now they are not introducing stuff like that after Nyerere. So I like that idea of we must have the values that something very defined. Now young people have that ability. To say that this is what now is going to lead us in terms of that organizing principle of our country. Ana alisema kwamba women have in totality katika siasa, they look like they are doing second fiddle. Na there isn't a very good role, for them. But let us remember, katika counties, the law was done in such a way that katika counties ilikuwa mpaka kuwe na 2/3. You can't have more than 2/3. Kwa hivyo in the counties hiyo imekuwa fulfilled. And so we must ask ourselves, hapo katika counties, what is the impact of women in the counties? And again, I don't think it is yet that great, because these 2/3, to get to 2/3, a few women are elected, and then the majority wanajazia, those specially elected. And that's still a question, why aren't more women being elected? And we must remember, in terms of the consistency, the maturity, the evidence that Anna talked about, including saying some of the role models now are absurd. Mtu anaambiwa pinduka, anapinduka, that kind of stuff. Sometimes women are not in the positions they are not in the positions of leadership in the party, senior positions, except a few. And even to get nominations, they are harassed, there is abuse, there's, stuff like that. Even their spouses are not clear whether they should allow them because of the harassment and so on. So again, there is the values that we are going to change. And the young people can come, again, you see, with calling the country to order, saying there are these new values. We are going to, do things differently. Given that, like, when you go to the universities now, 2/3 are girls and about 1/3 are men. And these are troubling statistics, because the men are being, gradually peripherized. Wanapelekwa huku kando kando. And of course, this can also translate kama Rwanda, where like the majority in parliament are, are women. In places like South Africa, it's a good thing, and some of the countries is a good stuff. So that is another thing to track. And maybe now there will be more women coming into leadership. But also that needs to be looked at, so that there aren't, many boys who are just out there without elimu na and so on and so forth. And the last question was reinforcing the youth effect. In the 90s, let's even talk about the Mau Mau. The Mau Mau, most of the people who fought the Mau Mau, they never ended up in Buku Parliament. They were weeded out, and the British, serikali ya Britain na pamoja na wale watu sasa walikuwa ni wao wanaenda katika Lancaster and so on, waka make sure that those radical people who wanted land to resolve the land question and wanted real equality and all that, hao sasa wakawa na an economy controlled by Wakenya, hao waka they were pushed aside, na wakaambiwa mna elimu ya kujua mambo mapya and so on. So you had something organized which didn't necessarily have people, but it made Kenya free. But then the problem was those who came to the leadership positions did not have the same values. Again, in the 90s, there was the National Convention Assembly na committee yake, management committee inaitwa National Convention Executive Council. Now wali push for, mwanzo waka reinforce kitu ya multi-party, lakini waka push sana for katiba. With civil society, kulikuwa na political opposition. At some point, political opposition ikaenda kwa serikali, wakatengeneza IPPG. But again, you had that group, which many of them were interested in just the change of the country, a new constitution, not necessarily to get into the offices, although people like myself, 2002, tuliingia katika siasa. Kwa hivyo, our youth, katika Gen Z movement yao pia, they should never let go of the movement itself. Even if some are going to get into politics, those who are going to get into politics, let them do that. The, Gen Z or Youth 25 movement, hiyo inakaa, youth, June 25th, Gen
seems like we're losing Prof. Wanjiro, can you hear Prof? Jadala, can you hear Prof?
I thought I was the only one. I can't hear him.
So as we wait for the Prof to come back,
Kama
Wanjiro,
serikali
it
was
was
very
your
scared
submission.
mpaka sasa, mpaka wengine waabductiwe, wawawe, wafanywe nini, na the United Opposition pia ina recruit, inajaribu kuwachukua wanaingia huko. Kwa hivyo ndio wengine huku wakikandamiza, wengine wana co-opt, ndio hii kitu ifizzle. You see, so that is why I keep on insisting, hii kitu lazima isimame na backbone na foundation yake, alafu they call the shots, and if that happens, nafikiri our country itafika mahali. Na tena ile question ilikuwa ya recall. Unajua, mtu akiangalia article 103, hiyo inasema sheria ya recall lazima itengenezwe 1 year. 1 year imepita for MPs, for parliament. Ukiangalia article 194 inasema 18 months recall ya wanaitwaje, MCAs. Hiyo inasema hivyo. Kwa hivyo hilo swali ya kwanza nilikuwa nimeuliza, ikiwa sheria hiyo haijatengenezwa ama kukamilishwa ama kuna kitu kimebaki, although the court was able to also talk on this issue, court ya kina George Kimondo, it means that these people are just preserving themselves, and that's why one must go the route of the Katiba, because the Katiba is the basic law in terms of this particular issue.